I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. I thought I had already lived through the worst of it when my husband's family spent years trying to push him back into his ex-wife's arms. But nothing prepared me for the moment I walked into his childhood bedroom and saw them half naked, about to do exactly what I'd always feared. My name is Mike, I'm 27, and my husband Peter is 37. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. Before me, Peter was married to a woman named Allison. They divorced a year before we met, and I knew from the start that his family never accepted that he was bisexual or that he'd left her for a man. They'd always made comments, little digs, saying he should go back to Allison, that he was just confused, that he'd eventually realize he wanted a real family. I ignored it because Peter always seemed solid. He always said I was his real family. And then we adopted our son Jack, who just turned 7. Jack is my whole world. I love him like he's my own blood because he is. The trouble started at Jack's birthday party. We drove out to Peter's hometown to celebrate with his side of the family. I wasn't thrilled, I never was around them, but it was for Jack. He wanted to see his cousins, so I swallowed my discomfort. The party was at Peter's parents' house, a big suburban place with a backyard full of kids running around. I spent the afternoon playing with Jack, helping him open presents, keeping a smile plastered on my face. Everything felt normal until about 30 minutes before cake time. My mother-in-law came over and whispered something to Peter. I didn't catch it, but I saw his face flicker. Then she walked to the front door and let someone in. It was Allison. I felt my stomach drop. She came in with a gift bag, all smiles, greeting relatives like she still belonged. Jack didn't even recognize her at first. He was only a baby when Peter and I got together. But the adults knew. I saw a few of Peter's aunts exchange looks. I knew exactly what this was. My mother-in-law had invited her on purpose, trying to create some kind of moment. I didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so I just kept playing with him. I figured I'd deal with it later. Then it was time to cut the cake. I looked around for Peter to call him over, but I couldn't find him, or Allison. Something cold ran through me. I told Jack to stay with his grandma for a minute and I went inside to look. The house was quiet. I checked the kitchen, the living room, the bathroom. Then I climbed the stairs. I heard a muffled sound from Peter's old bedroom, the room his parents still kept as a shrine to his teenage years. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. They were standing there, backs to me, pulling at each other's clothes. Peter's shirt was already off. Allison's hand was on his belt. They hadn't noticed me yet. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there for what felt like a full minute, processing the image. Then I turned around, walked back downstairs, and went outside to the cake table. I cut the cake myself. I served the kids. I laughed at the jokes. I made sure Jack had the best birthday he could have. Part of me wanted to fall apart right there, but I refused to make his birthday about me, so I kept it together until the party wound down. Guests were leaving. Jack was opening his last present when Peter and Allison finally came down the stairs. They had fixed their clothes, but Allison's hair was messed up. Peter looked at me and I could tell he knew I saw something. He pulled me aside into the kitchen. His tone was sharp, almost angry. "Why did you cut the cake without me? That was disrespectful." I stared at him. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." His face went white. He opened his mouth but nothing came out. I didn't wait for an explanation. I walked over to Jack, told him we were leaving, and packed him into the car. Peter followed us to the driveway, but I didn't look back. I drove straight to the hotel we were staying at. That night after I put Jack to bed, I sat in the bathroom and let myself feel everything. I cried, I shook. I thought about all the times Peter's family had said Allison would always be part of his life, and I told myself they were just being bitter. Now I realized they weren't wrong, they were just cruel. They had orchestrated this and Peter had walked right into it. I texted him that I was done, that I was filing for divorce, that I would not forgive him. He started calling, texting, pleading. He said it was a mistake. He said Allison initiated it. He said he was confused. He said all the cliches. I didn't respond. The next morning I called my parents and told them everything. They lived 2 hours away. I asked if we could stay with them for a while. They said yes without hesitation. I packed up Jack and left the hotel before Peter could come back. I didn't tell him where we were going. I just left. When we got to my parents' house, I sat Jack down and told him that Daddy and I were going to live apart for a while. He cried. I held him. I told him it wasn't his fault and that I would always be his dad no matter what. He's 7. He doesn't understand all of it, but he knows something is wrong. I called a lawyer the next day. The lawyer said I had a strong case for adultery and that Peter's family's behavior could work in my favor if I wanted to fight for full custody of Jack. I told him yes, I wanted full custody. Jack is my son. I will not let Peter's family poison his life the way they poisoned Peter's. Peter has been calling nonstop. His mother called me screaming that I was ruining her son's life. I hung up. I blocked their numbers. I'm not going to let them twist this story. I saw what I saw. I know what I know. It's been a week now. I'm staying at my parents' house with Jack. I've started the divorce proceedings. Peter tried to show up at my parents' house yesterday, but my dad told him to leave. He looked broken. Part of me felt a flicker of pity, but then I remembered that bedroom. I remembered the cake he didn't help cut. I remembered that he chose to cheat on me at our son's birthday while I was entertaining his family. I asked my lawyer about the adoption. Jack is legally mine as well as Peter's. If Peter fights for custody, it could get ugly. But my lawyer thinks Peter won't fight. He's always been easily swayed by his family and they want him back with Allison. If he signs over his rights, I can have sole custody. I'm praying he does that. For Jack's sake, I haven't slept properly in days. I keep reliving that moment, the door, the half-removed clothes, the sound of their breathing. I'm angry and hurt and exhausted, but I'm also sure I'm not going to forgive this. I'm not going to let him explain his way out of it. He made a choice. He chose his ex-wife, his homophobic family, and a moment of weakness over me and our son. This isn't going to be an easy road. But I'd rather walk it alone than stay with someone who could do that to us. I've started telling a few close friends the full story. Most of them are in shock. A couple said they always thought Peter's family would eventually drive a wedge between us. I guess they were right. I don't know what the next update will bring, but I know one thing: I'm done. I'm leaving for good, and I'm taking my son with me. So I sat there in my parents' guest room, Jack asleep next to me, and I realized that story was just the beginning of something bigger. That whole experience taught me that people will show you exactly who they are if you let them, but I didn't know back then that the next nightmare would come from a completely different direction. A coworker, a desk job, someone who decided my disability was fake. Here's the thing about chronic pain: you can't see it, you can't take a picture of it. You can't prove it with a blood test or an X-ray, and people who don't live with it will always think you're exaggerating. I learned that the hard way. I'm a woman in my late 20s. I work full-time at a corporate office, and I also have a part-time gig at another company just to keep my savings padded and my mind busy. My chronic pain started about 5 years ago. It's not something that showed up with a clear cause. It just came. Doctors call it chronic pain syndrome. I call it a daily nightmare. On the pain scale, most normal people sit at a 1 or 2. I sit at a 6. Every single day. Imagine stepping on a Lego, but it never goes away. Imagine pulling a muscle in your back and having that dull ache follow you through every meeting, every commute, every kiss goodnight. That's my life. I have canes. I use them on days when I'm at a 7 or higher. I have a handicap placard for my car. I filed all the proper paperwork with my employer so that if I ever needed accommodations, they were ready. The ADA is supposed to protect people like me, but the ADA can't protect you from a coworker with a grudge. My new team was great. I got transferred to a location closer to my house, and my boss Amy was genuinely supportive. My coworker Casey and I were both assistant coordinators. Same job title, same pay, same responsibilities. Casey had been there longer and she desperately wanted a promotion to full-time coordinator. I didn't want that promotion. I already had a full-time job elsewhere. I worked the part-time gig because I liked the work and it kept my anxiety in check. Being busy helps me. That's just how my brain works. Casey, though, saw me as a threat. She thought that because I wasn't pushing for a promotion, I was somehow taking advantage of the system. She thought I was faking my pain to avoid responsibility. She started making little comments. You're always sitting down, you never carry boxes, you take too many breaks. I brushed it off because Amy always backed me up. My disability paperwork was on file. I had a doctor's note. I had the placard. I thought it was all solid. Then came the Sunday that changed everything. I was at a grocery store. It was one of those rare days where my pain spiked to a solid 8. I was using my cane, moving slowly through the aisles, trying to get the basics. Milk, bread, eggs, painkillers. I leaned on the cart a lot. I probably looked tired. I definitely looked in pain. When I got back to my car, I sat in the driver's seat for a few minutes before starting the engine. That's just what you do when your body is screaming at you. You wait, you breathe. What I didn't know was that Casey was standing behind a parked car a few rows away, using her phone to record me. I found out the next day at work. Amy pulled me into her office with a worried look. She showed me an email from HR. Someone had filed a complaint against me, accusing me of faking my disability. Attached to the complaint was a video. It was me in the grocery store parking lot, walking to my car with my cane, sitting down, looking at my phone, then driving away. The video was about 4 minutes long. The caption on the email said, "This employee claims to be disabled but is clearly able to move normally when off the clock. The handicap placard is being used fraudulently." My heart stopped. I asked Amy who sent it. She said Casey had forwarded it to HR with a formal complaint. Casey claimed she just happened to be at the same grocery store and noticed me. That was a lie. That grocery store was 20 minutes from the office. Casey lived in the opposite direction. She had followed me. She had stalked me on a day I was struggling just to walk, and she turned it into evidence against me. I felt sick. I told Amy everything: the chronic pain, the daily scale, the canes, the placard, the doctor's documentation. Amy believed me. She said she'd fight for me. But HR had to investigate because Casey had made a formal complaint. They scheduled a meeting for the following week. That meeting was one of the worst hours of my life. Casey sat across the table with a smug look on her face. HR asked me to explain my disability. I described the pain. I showed them my doctor's note. I showed them the original accommodation request I had filed when I was hired. Casey interrupted and said, "She's lying. Look at the video. She walks fine when she thinks no one is watching." I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, "You think I walked fine? You think leaning on a cane, stopping every few steps, sitting in my car for 5 minutes before driving away is fine?" But I kept my voice steady. I asked HR to pause the meeting. I pulled out my phone and showed them the medical diary I keep. Every day I rate my pain on a scale of 1 to 10. That day I had recorded an 8. I also showed them photos I had taken that morning of my swollen ankle. I told them that the cane wasn't for show, it was for support. HR looked uncomfortable. They said they would review everything and get back to me. Casey left the room with a smirk. I went back to my desk and cried in the bathroom. The investigation took 3 weeks. In that time, Casey started making work miserable. She would stare at me from her desk. She would loudly comment about people who cheat the system. She left passive-aggressive notes on my keyboard. I documented everything. I took screenshots. I saved voicemails. Amy backed me up, but she couldn't do much while the investigation was ongoing. Finally, HR called me back in. They said the investigation found no evidence of fraud. They said I had legitimate documentation and that Casey's video didn't prove anything. But they also said they couldn't punish Casey for filing a complaint because she had a reasonable belief that I was faking. They recommended we both undergo sensitivity training. I was furious. She stalked me. She recorded me without my consent. She tried to destroy my reputation. And she got a slap on the wrist. I told HR that I wanted to file a complaint against Casey for harassment and invasion of privacy. They said I could, but it would be a separate process. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. I contacted a lawyer. I told him everything. He said I had a solid case for disability retaliation, stalking, and hostile work environment. He sent a letter to the company. Suddenly, HR started taking me seriously. Casey was put on administrative leave while they investigated her behavior. A week later, she was fired. I won, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like I had been put through a shredder and then asked to pretend nothing happened. The worst part is that Casey's video is still out there. She posted it on social media before she was fired. I had to have my lawyer send takedown notices. Some people in my personal life saw it and asked me about it. I had to explain to my own cousins that I'm not faking. It's exhausting. I still work at that office. I still have chronic pain. I still use my cane on bad days. But now I also have a small voice in my head that wonders if someone else is watching, if they're filming me. If they're waiting to catch me in a moment where I don't look disabled enough. That's the thing about invisible disabilities. People will always think you're lying. They'll follow you to a grocery store to prove it. And even when you win, you lose because you never get back that feeling of safety. You never stop wondering who's standing behind the parked car. I thought that story would be the end of my bad luck with coworkers, but life likes to throw curveballs. The next one came from my son. Or rather, from his ex-girlfriend, and that one was even messier. My son just turned 16. He's a typical teenager, moody, smart, thinks he knows everything. He had a girlfriend for about 6 months. She was 16, almost 17. They broke up a month before everything exploded. I didn't think much of it. Teenage relationships are like thunderstorms. They come and go fast. Then we got a call from her parents. She was pregnant, slightly showing. The dates lined up with when my son was still dating her. My wife and I went into panic mode. We sat our son down. We told him. He looked at us with genuine confusion and said, "It's not mine. I never fucked her." I didn't believe him at first. I know he's active, I've had the talk with him, I've given him protection, but he insisted. He said they never had sex. He said he cheated on her with someone else and that was part of why they broke up. He was angry, not guilty, angry. My wife didn't believe him. She thought he was lying to avoid responsibility. We met with her parents. My wife started talking about funding and paternity tests and shared custody. My son spoke up and said again, "It's not mine, we never did it. We only did other stuff." He didn't go into detail, but I could see the embarrassment on his face. He was mortified. That's when I started to believe him. The ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did anything physical. She described one specific event that supposedly happened in his bedroom. My son's face went white. He said, "That never happened. I was at my friend's house that night. I have texts." He showed us his phone. He had a group chat from that night with 2 friends, time-stamped at the exact time she claimed they were together. He had location data from his phone. He had proof she was lying. We confronted her parents. They didn't want to hear it. They said teenagers lie about everything. But my wife was still torn. She wanted to believe the pregnancy was his. She wanted to do the right thing and bring everyone together. I told her, "We need a paternity test." She didn't want one. She said it would embarrass the girl. I said, "We have a right to know." The test came back. The baby wasn't my son's. My son was telling the truth. He was furious at us for not believing him. He screamed that we ruined his trust. I felt like a terrible father. My wife cried. She apologized. But my son wouldn't forgive her. He moved in with my parents for a week. That's when the ex-girlfriend's family turned ugly. They started accusing us of faking the test. They said we bribed the lab. They circulated rumors in the school. My son had to change schools because of the bullying. It took months to get back to normal. My wife and I had to go to marriage counseling because she was so focused on saving a situation that didn't exist. I realized that she had been so desperate for control that she lost sight of our son. I don't know if we're okay yet, but I know one thing: I should have believed my son from the start. He was telling the truth. He knew what he did and didn't do. And I let my fear of a teenage pregnancy cloud my judgment. That's the lesson I keep learning. People will lie to you, but sometimes they won't. And if you don't listen, you lose them. I never thought I'd be the guy who catches his husband cheating at his own son's birthday party. But here I am typing this from my brother's spare bedroom, trying to figure out how my entire life fell apart in one afternoon. Let me back up. My name's not important, but let's call me Mike. I'm 27. My husband, Peter, is 37. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. I know the age gap looks weird on paper, but it never felt weird to me. He was stable, kind, funny. He had a daughter from his first marriage, well, ex-wife Allison. They divorced a year before we met. He said it was amicable. He said they just grew apart. I believed him because why wouldn't I? We adopted a little boy named Jack when he was 4. He's 7 now. I love him like he's my own blood. I'm the one who reads him bedtime stories, who picks him up from school, who wipes his tears when he scrapes his knee. Peter works late a lot, so a lot of the parenting fell on me. I didn't mind. Jack is my son. Full stop. The only fly in the ointment was Peter's family. They're from a small town about 2 hours away. They never really accepted me. Oh, they were polite at first, but I could feel the tension. His mother would make comments about how Peter used to be so happy with Allison. His father would shake my hand too hard and then turn away. They never said the word gay in front of me, but I heard the whispers. They wanted Peter back with a woman. They wanted a normal family. Peter always told me to ignore them. He said they were old-fashioned and would come around. I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew they'd never see me as part of the family. Jack's 7th birthday was 2 weeks ago. We decided to have the party at Peter's parents' house because they had a big backyard and a pool. Jack loves the pool. I agreed even though I knew it would be tense. I wanted Jack to have a good time. I wanted him to feel like he had a big family. The party started at noon. My mother-in-law was all smiles. She helped me set up the decorations. I thought maybe things were finally improving. I was wrong. Around 1 o'clock, I noticed Allison walk in through the back gate. She was carrying a gift bag. My stomach dropped. I looked at my mother-in-law. She was smiling like she had just won a prize. I didn't want to make a scene. Jack was blowing out candles on a cupcake with his cousins, so I stayed quiet. I forced a smile. I played along. The next 2 hours were a blur of cake and presents and pool games. I kept an eye on Peter and Allison. They were talking near the grill, laughing. Peter put his hand on her shoulder. I told myself I was overreacting. They were old friends. They had a history. It meant nothing. Then I went inside to grab more napkins. Jack wanted me to cut the cake. I called for Peter. No answer. I looked in the kitchen, in the living room, in the bathroom. Then I heard a creak from upstairs, Peter's old bedroom. I climbed the stairs. The door was half open. I saw them before I could stop myself. Peter had his shirt off. Allison was unbuttoning her jeans. They were half naked, tangled together on his childhood bed. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds. They didn't see me. I backed away slowly. I walked down the stairs. I went back to the backyard. I cut the cake. I sang happy birthday. I took pictures. I smiled. Inside I was screaming, but I refused to ruin Jack's day. An hour later, people started leaving. Peter and Allison came down separately. Peter found me by the grill. He looked annoyed. He said, "Why did you cut the cake without me? That was disrespectful." I looked him in the eye. I said, "I'm sorry. I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." His face went pale. He opened his mouth. No words came out. I didn't wait for an explanation. I told Jack we were leaving. He was tired anyway. We drove back to the hotel. I put Jack to bed. Then I sat on the bathroom floor and cried. Peter called me that night. He said it was a mistake. He said Allison kissed him first. He said he was confused. He said he loved me. I didn't say much. I just asked him if he was planning to tell me or if I was supposed to catch him again. He didn't answer. I stayed at the hotel with Jack for 2 days. Peter's parents called. His mother said I was blowing things out of proportion. She said Allison was just trying to help Peter feel normal again. She said if I really loved him, I would forgive him. I hung up. When I finally went home, Peter was there. He had flowers. He had a speech. He said he'd go to therapy. He said he'd cut off contact with Allison. He said his family would apologize. I told him I needed time. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't gone back to the house. I'm staying with my brother. I filed for divorce yesterday. The worst part is that Peter's family won't stop. They've been calling me nonstop. They left voicemails saying I'm breaking up a real family. They said Jack needs a mother figure. They said I'm selfish. Last night, Allison showed up at my brother's apartment. She knocked on the door at 10 p.m. She said she wanted to talk. I didn't open the door. I called the police. They gave her a warning, but I know she'll be back. She's been sending me text messages from different numbers. She says Peter never loved me. She says he was always going to go back to her. She says I'm just a phase. Jack is confused. He asks why we can't live with daddy. I don't know what to tell him. I'm not his biological father. The adoption went through, but Peter's family is already threatening to challenge it. They say I'm not a real parent. They say I have no rights. I'm terrified. I've spent the last 3 years being Jack's dad. I've been there for every doctor's appointment, every school play, every nightmare. And now they're trying to take him away because I'm not straight and I didn't forgive a cheater. The divorce hearing is next month. I have a lawyer. I have proof of the infidelity. I have the text messages Allison sent, but I'm scared. I'm scared that a judge will look at me and see a bitter ex-husband instead of a father. Peter is still calling me. He says he loves me. He says he'll leave Allison. He says he'll cut off his family. I don't know if I believe him. I don't know if it matters. I don't want to go back. I can't go back. He broke something that can't be fixed, and his family made sure I knew that I was never really one of them. Jack asked me yesterday if we could get a dog. I told him maybe. He said, I want a puppy that loves me forever. I said, I love you forever, buddy. That's what I keep holding on to, that little boy. He's all that matters now. I don't care about the house or the money or the stupid birthday party. I care about Jack. And I will fight for him until I have nothing left. I don't know if I'll win, but I know I'll never stop trying. I thought my story was over. But looking back, that betrayal was just the beginning of a chain that made me realize how many people are willing to hurt you for their own benefit. And sometimes the people who hurt you aren't even family, they're just the ones you see every day at work. Let me introduce myself. My name's not important, but let's say I'm a 32-year-old woman living in Texas. I have a condition called chronic pain. I know that sounds vague, but here's how I explain it to people who don't get it. Imagine you're walking around with a pulled muscle all day, every day. Not the sharp, screaming pain of stepping on a Lego, that's an 8 on the pain scale. I'm usually at a 6, some days a 7, rare blessed days maybe a 4, and I've learned to function like that. I have 2 jobs, I'm active, I don't look sick, and that's been both a blessing and a curse. I have a full-time job that I won't name and then a part-time job as an assistant coordinator at another company. I took the part-time gig to pad my savings and keep my mind busy. My boss, Amy, is fantastic. She's fair, she's understanding, and she knows about my disability because I had all the paperwork filed from day one. I have a handicap placard for my car. I own canes, I just don't use them unless I'm at a 7 or above. That's just my reality. There's a woman at that part-time job named Casey. She's also an assistant coordinator, same position as me. We got along okay at first. She's ambitious, wants a promotion to full-time coordinator. That's fine. I've told everyone I don't want that promotion. I already have a full-time job. I'm here to help out and earn extra money, not climb the ladder. Casey knows that, but apparently she didn't care. It started small. She'd make comments about my parking spot. You know, you park in the handicap spot, but I saw you walking just fine yesterday. I'd explain that my condition fluctuates. She'd shrug. Then she started asking pointed questions about my brakes. Why do you get to sit down more than I do? I'd explain it's an accommodation approved by HR. She'd roll her eyes. I tried to ignore it, but Casey was building a case. And last Sunday, she crossed a line I never imagined. That Sunday was a bad day for me, pain at a solid 8. I used my cane all day. I was working my part-time job that afternoon, limping through the office. Casey saw me. I didn't think much of it, but after my shift, I stopped at a grocery store on the way home. I needed milk and bread. I parked in the handicap spot. I had my placard up. I went inside, used the shopping cart as a support, and grabbed what I needed. I walked out, got in my car, and drove home. The next morning, my phone started blowing up. A coworker sent me a video. It was me from a few angles walking into the grocery store, fast. I was walking at a normal pace because the cart helped. The video had a text overlay. See, she's not disabled. She's faking it for the parking spot and the special treatment. Within an hour, that video had been shared in our work group chat, and then Casey posted it on her personal social media. She tagged our boss, Amy. She tagged the company page. She wrote, calling out ableism at work. Our company is being lied to. I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't even done anything wrong. I had a legal placard. I had medical documentation. And she recorded me without my consent, followed me outside of work, and tried to ruin my reputation. I called Amy immediately. Amy said she was aware. She'd seen the video that morning. She told me not to come in until she sorted it out. She said she would investigate, but I didn't feel safe. I went to the police station in my county. I filed a report for invasion of privacy, harassment, and stalking. The officer looked at me, looked at the video, and said, Ma'am, this is a workplace matter, not a criminal matter. I showed him the screenshots of Casey's posts. He shrugged. I'm black. I live in Texas. I know how these things go, but I wasn't about to give up. I went back to Amy. Amy met with HR. They pulled me aside for a meeting. They asked me to provide all my medical documentation again, which I did. They said they would talk to Casey. I waited all week. Then on Friday, I got a call from Amy. Her voice was tight. She told me that Casey had been suspended pending an investigation. But that wasn't the worst part. Apparently, Casey had been doing this for months. She'd been following me to different stores, taking videos of me on good days when I didn't use my cane. She had a whole folder of evidence she was planning to send to the company's upper management and to the local news. I sat in my car and cried, not because I was scared, I was angry. This woman tried to tear down my life because she wanted a promotion. She saw me as an obstacle. She thought if she could prove I was faking, she'd get my position or the job I didn't even want. The investigation took 2 more weeks. Casey was terminated. The company released a statement saying they do not tolerate harassment or discrimination. But the damage was done. People at my office still look at me weird. Some of them believed the video. They think I'm faking because they saw me walk fast once. They don't see me crying on my bathroom floor on days when I can't even stand. They don't see the piles of medical bills. They just see a woman who looks normal and uses a handicap spot. I know I did the right thing by reporting it, but there's this hollow feeling. Casey got fired, but she's still out there. She still has the videos. She could post them again, and the police didn't do anything. They told me to get a lawyer. I'm trying, but lawyers cost money and I'm already stretched thin. My part-time job has become a point of stress. I'm looking for a new one. Amy offered me a transfer, but I'm tired of running. I just want to do my work and be left alone. Sometimes I wonder if it's even worth fighting. When you're disabled, you learn that people will always doubt you. They think you're either faking or weak. There's no middle ground, and when they catch you on a good day, they use it against you. They don't understand that good days come with bad nights. They don't see the fatigue, the medication fog, the doctor appointments. All they see is a moment. I'll be okay. I've been through worse, but I'm not going to let someone like Casey silence me. If you have a disability and someone tries to discredit you, don't stay quiet. Document everything. Go to HR, go to the police even if they brush you off. Keep fighting, because if I gave up, that would be her victory. And God, I hope she never pulls that on someone else, because this world is already cruel enough to people who are different. We don't need people like Casey making it worse. I'm still in the same job for now. I still use my cane when I need it. And I've learned that some battles aren't won overnight. But I'm telling my story because maybe someone out there is going through the same thing. And I want you to know you're not alone. You're not faking it. You're not weak. You're surviving, that's all any of us can do. You think you know your family. Then your 16-year-old old son comes home with a bombshell that cracks everything. My son, let's call him Jake, had just turned 16. He had a girlfriend, Emma. She was almost 17. They'd been together for about a year. We liked her. She came to Sunday dinners. She was polite. She seemed smart. But about a month before this all started, they broke up. Typical teenage drama, I figured. He wouldn't talk about it and I didn't push. Then my wife Sarah and I got a call from Emma's parents. They wanted to meet, urgently. We sat down in their living room and her mother started crying before she even got the words out. Emma was pregnant, about 8 weeks along. The dates lined up perfectly with Jake and Emma's relationship. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. Sarah immediately went into planning mode. She was talking about co-parenting, about financial support, about how we'd help them finish school. The other parents nodded along. I sat there in a daze. I said we needed to talk to Jake first. They agreed. We waited a couple of days. I wanted to gather myself. Sarah was already looking up baby gear online. I told her to slow down. She snapped at me, said I was in denial. Maybe I was, but I also knew my son. Finally, on a Friday night, we sat Jake down in the living room. Sarah started crying before she even said his name. He looked terrified. She told him Emma was pregnant. His face went blank. Then he said, flat as a board, "It's not mine. I never fucked her." Sarah lost it. She started screaming at him, calling him a liar, saying he was trying to get out of responsibility. I held up my hand. Jake, just talk to us, please. He looked at me with these wide eyes. Dad, I always rap, you know that. I asked you for condoms, you bought them. I never ever did it without, and I never did it with her, period. I knew he was sexually active. We'd had the talk. I'd made sure he had protection. He was a shithead in a lot of ways, typical teenage boy, but he'd never lied to me about that. I believed him. Sarah didn't. I pulled him aside later that night, just him and me in the garage. I said, son, I need you to tell me the truth. Is there any chance this is yours? He looked at the floor and then back at me. Dad, I cheated on Emma. With someone else, that's why we broke up, but I never had sex with her. We did other stuff, but not that, and I'm not the father. I didn't ask who he cheated with. I figured he'd tell me when he was ready, but I believed him. That was the beginning of a war in my house. The families met again, this time both sets of parents, Emma and Jake. Emma looked tired, scared. Her mother started talking about DNA tests and court orders. Sarah jumped in saying we should just accept responsibility and figure out a plan. My son spoke up louder than I'd ever heard him. I said it's not mine, we never had sex, she knows it. Emma started crying. She said they only did that thing a couple times, but she was sure he was the father because they'd been together. Jake shook his head. We did oral, Emma, that's it, you know that. The room went silent. Then my wife turned to me and hissed, you're part of the problem. You're defending his boy culture nonsense. I didn't know what to say, I just stared at her. For the next 2 weeks, Sarah barely spoke to me. She slept in the guest room. She'd leave the room when I walked in. She told her mother, who called me and said I was enabling a deadbeat. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was wrong, maybe Jake was lying, maybe I was just a stupid father who couldn't see his son's faults. But then Jake came to me. It was a Tuesday night. He was shaking. He said, Dad, I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise not to hate me. I promised. He took a breath. I'm gay. I have a boyfriend. His name is Marcus. I've been seeing him for 6 months. Emma found out, and that's why we broke up. She was furious. She said she'd ruin me. I didn't scream. I didn't get angry. I just hugged him. I said, I love you, son. That doesn't change a thing. He cried into my shoulder. Then he told me the rest. Marcus had a sister. That sister had a boyfriend. And that sister had gotten pregnant by her boyfriend around the same time Emma and Jake broke up. Jake didn't know the details, but he said Marcus's sister and Emma were friends. He thought Emma might have known about the pregnancy and used it to pin it on him. It sounded insane. But my gut told me it was true. I called Emma's parents. I said I needed proof. I asked about the exact date of conception. They gave me a range. It didn't match any date Jake could confirm. I called Marcus's family anonymously. Well, I had Sarah call them from a blocked number. She didn't know why. She just asked if their daughter was pregnant. The mother said yes and gave a due date. It was the same week as Emma's. I sat Sarah down that night. I told her everything. I showed her the timeline. I told her Jake was gay, that he had a boyfriend, that he had never been with Emma. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Then she said, you believe him because he's your son. You'll always believe him. You'll never hold him accountable. I said, what about the facts? What about the timeline? She said, I don't care. He should have told us earlier. He lied about everything. I didn't know how to reach her. She was so wrapped up in her anger, her need to be right, that she couldn't see the truth. I told her we needed to get a DNA test to settle it. She agreed, but with no enthusiasm. The test came back negative. Jake was not the father. Emma eventually admitted the truth. She'd found out about Jake being gay and she was humiliated. She panicked. She saw a chance to make him pay. She got the idea from her pregnant friend. It was a mess. A cruel, stupid mess. Sarah didn't apologize. She said, well, at least now we know. And she went back to scrolling on her phone. I'm still married to her, but I don't know for how much longer. Every time I look at her, I see the way she refused to believe our son. I see the way she chose her anger over the truth. And I wonder what else she'll refuse to see when it matters. Jake is out now to everyone. He and Marcus are still together. The other family handled the pregnancy privately. We've helped Jake through therapy. He's doing okay, but the damage between me and my wife, that's a deeper crack. I don't know if it'll ever seal. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I had to choose between my wife and my son. But I did, and I chose my son. I'll never regret that. But I do regret that it cost me the marriage I thought we had. You think you know someone, then you find them in a bedroom with their ex, shirts off, pants halfway down at your 7-year-old's birthday party. I never thought I'd be that guy. I'm 27, married for 3 years to Peter, who's 37. We've been together 6 years total. He was married before to a woman named Allison. They divorced a year before we met. I knew that going in. I knew he was bisexual, never bothered me. I knew his family was homophobic. They always told him to get back with Allison. I figured that was just noise. We had a good life. We adopted a son, Jack, when he was 4. He's 7 now. I love that kid like he's my own blood. 2 weeks ago, we drove to Peter's hometown for Jack's birthday party. His mother planned it at their house. I didn't want to go. I knew his family would be passive-aggressive, making comments about real marriages and when are you going to settle down with a woman. But Jack wanted to see his cousins, so I swallowed it. The party started at 2 in the afternoon. Balloons, cake, the whole thing. Jack was happy. I was keeping my distance from Peter's mom, just playing with the kids. Around 3, I noticed Allison walk in. I froze. Nobody told me she was coming. Peter's mom must have invited her. I looked around for Peter, but he wasn't there. I didn't want to cause a scene. Jack was having fun, so I stayed quiet. An hour later, it was time to cut the cake. I looked for Peter again. Allison wasn't in the backyard either. I asked one of the cousins if they'd seen my husband. He shrugged. I went inside the house. It was quiet. The bedrooms were down the hall. I walked past the guest room empty. Then I checked Peter's old childhood bedroom. The door was ajar. I saw them. Peter and Allison both half undressed. His shirt was off. Her bra was unhooked. They were kissing against the wall. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Neither of them noticed me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned around, walked back to the backyard, and helped Jack cut the cake. I smiled. I sang happy birthday. I watched him open presents. Inside, I was gone. I was a ghost. People started leaving around 5. That's when Peter and Allison finally came back out. Peter walked up to me, his face red. He said, "You cut the cake without me? That was disrespectful." I stared at him. I said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He turned white. He didn't say anything. I picked up Jack, told him we were leaving early, and walked out. I didn't look back. We went to the hotel. I put Jack to bed, then sat on the bathroom floor and cried. I called my best friend. She said, "You need to leave him." I said, "I know." The next morning, Peter showed up at the hotel. He was crying, begging, saying it was a mistake, that his mom put pressure on him, that Allison had cornered him. I told him to leave. He didn't. He stood in the hallway for an hour until the manager called security. I packed our bags and drove home. I haven't spoken to him since. I filed for divorce last Monday. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. Jack is not biologically mine. We adopted him. But Peter has never been a real father to him. I'm the one who does the school runs, the doctor's appointments, the bedtime stories. Peter works late, travels, barely shows up. When I filed for divorce, Peter's lawyer sent a letter saying he wants full custody of Jack. He said I'm not the biological father, I have no rights, that I should just walk away. I can't, I won't. Jack calls me dad. He cries when Peter yells at him. He tells me he loves me. I can't abandon him. I hired a lawyer. She says I have a case because I've been the primary caregiver for 3 years, but it's not guaranteed. The courts usually side with biological parents. Peter's mom has already started spreading lies, saying I abused Jack, that I was never a good father. She told the family I'm trying to steal her grandchild. Last week, I got a call from Peter. He said, "If you drop the divorce and come back, we can work this out. I'll drop the custody fight. We can be a family again." I said, "You cheated on me at our son's birthday party. You're trying to take my son away. There is no family left." He hung up. I don't know how this ends. I'm fighting. I'm exhausted, I'm scared, but I'll never forgive him, not for the cheating, not for using my son as a weapon. Some people say I should just walk away, start over. Let Peter have Jack, but they don't understand. That little boy is mine. I changed his diapers. I taught him to ride a bike. I held him when he had nightmares. No piece of paper can undo that. The hearing is next month. I'm praying the judge sees the truth, but I've learned that truth doesn't always win. Sometimes it just gets buried under lies and lawyers. I thought my marriage was solid. I thought Peter loved me. I thought his family would eventually come around. I was wrong on all counts. And now I might lose the only son I've ever known. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your whole world, and you can't glue it back together no matter how hard you try. I never thought a coworker would follow me around and film me just to prove I wasn't disabled. But Casey did exactly that. I have chronic pain, not the kind you can see, the kind that lives in your bones every single day. I explain it like this: if normal people live at a pain level of 2 or 3, I live at a 6, like a pulled muscle that never heals. Some days I'm higher, rare days I'm lower. On the days I hit a 7 or above, I use a cane. I have a handicap placard for my car. I filed all the paperwork with my job when I started because I knew I might need accommodations eventually. I work 2 jobs. My full-time gig pays the bills. My part-time job is at a small office assistant coordinator to a woman named Amy. I like the work. It keeps me busy, helps with my anxiety. I don't want a promotion. My position is part-time and any promotion would be full-time, and I already have a full-time job. This is extra savings, something to do. Casey is the other assistant coordinator. She wants the promotion bad. Everyone knows it. She's been there longer. She thinks she deserves it, and she saw me as competition even though I kept telling her I wasn't interested. The trouble started about 3 months ago. I had a bad flare-up. I was at a 7 or 8. I used my cane to get around the office. Casey saw me and asked, "What's that for?" I told her I have chronic pain. She nodded, but I saw the look in her eyes. Skepticism. Like she didn't believe me. A week later, I was at the grocery store after work. It was a good day, maybe a 4. I was walking normally, no cane, carrying my bags. I didn't see Casey at first. She was in the next aisle, phone out. I thought she was texting. Then I saw the camera angle. She was filming me. I didn't say anything. I just left. The next day at work, she pulled me aside. She said, "I saw you at the store yesterday. You were walking fine, no cane, you're not disabled. You're faking it to get special treatment." I told her I don't get special treatment. I told her chronic pain fluctuates. I told her I only use the cane on bad days. She didn't care. She said she was going to report me. I went to Amy, my boss. I told her what happened. Amy was great. She said she'd talk to Casey. She told me not to worry, but Casey didn't stop. She started leaving passive-aggressive notes on my desk. "Hope you're feeling better today. Must be nice to take breaks whenever you want." She told other coworkers I was lying. Some of them believed her. I heard whispers in the break room. I tried to ignore it. I focused on my work. I kept my head down. Then Casey took it further. She followed me on my days off. I saw her car outside my apartment one Saturday. I called the police. They said it wasn't stalking because she didn't threaten me. They told me to avoid her. 2 weeks later, Casey showed Amy a video. It was me walking out of a restaurant with my friends, no cane, laughing. Casey had recorded it from her car. She said, "See, she's not disabled. She's frauding the system." Amy called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. She said, "I know your condition is real. I've seen your doctor's notes, but Casey is making a big deal about this. She's been showing this video to everyone. The district manager is asking questions." I felt like I was being put on trial. I had to prove my own pain. I brought in my medical records. I brought in a letter from my specialist. I explained the pain scale, the flare-ups, the cane usage. Amy believed me, but the damage was done. Casey started talking to clients about me. She told them I was lazy, that I used my disability to get out of work. Clients complained. One of them asked for a different coordinator. Casey smirked when she heard that. I filed a formal complaint with HR. They launched an investigation. Casey denied everything. She said she was just concerned about fairness. She said I was the one who lied. She said I was trying to get her fired because I wanted her job. I never wanted her job. I just wanted to do my work without being filmed and accused. The investigation took 6 weeks. During that time, Casey escalated. She started sending me texts from a fake number. "Faker. Liar. I'm going to expose you." I showed them to HR. They told me to block the number. I felt trapped. I couldn't leave my job because I needed the money. I couldn't fight back because any move I made me look like the aggressor. Then the company hired a new manager over Amy. This manager, a woman named Denise, had a reputation for being tough on disability abuse. Casey saw her chance. She went to Denise with the video. She told Denise I was a fraud, that I was costing the company money by taking breaks and using the handicap parking. Denise called a meeting with me, Amy, and HR. She said, "I need you to prove your disability." I said, "I have notes from my doctor. I have my handicap placard. I have a legal accommodation on file." Denise said, "That's not enough. I need you to go to our company doctor and get reevaluated." I felt humiliated, but I agreed. I went to their doctor. He reviewed my records, examined me, and wrote a report confirming my condition. He said I was clearly disabled. Denise still wasn't satisfied. She said, "But you don't use the cane all the time." The doctor explained fluctuating pain. Denise said, "I think you're exaggerating." I lost it. I said, "Do you want me to cry? Do you want me to scream? Do you want to see me unable to get out of bed? Because I can show you, but I won't. That's not a show." Denise said, "This isn't working out." I was put on administrative leave pending further review. I sat at home for 2 weeks, terrified I'd lose my job. Casey was still working. She sent me a text, "Told you." That's when I hired a lawyer. She sent a letter to the company threatening a lawsuit for disability discrimination and invasion of privacy. The company panicked. They reopened the investigation. They interviewed all my coworkers. They reviewed Casey's texts and videos. They found out Casey had been stalking me for months. Last week, I got the news. Casey was fired. Denise was reassigned. The company apologized and offered me my job back with full back pay and a promise to retrain management. I went back to work yesterday. My desk was clean. The whispers stopped. Everyone is polite, but I don't trust any of them anymore, especially not the ones who believed Casey. I still have chronic pain. Some days I use a cane, some days I don't. That's just how it works. But I shouldn't have to prove it every time someone decides they don't like me. Casey tried to destroy my reputation because she wanted a promotion she thought I was blocking. She filmed me, she followed me, she lied to my bosses, and for a while it worked, but I'm still here, still working, still in pain. And Casey is gone. The funny thing is I never even wanted her job. I just wanted to earn my paycheck and go home. But she decided I was a threat. She decided my disability was fake. And she went to war over it. I won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. And that's all I can do most days, just survive, one painful day at a time.